Okay, I'm going to work through and explain the homework problems from lesson 3-2, and I'll make this available after it is due so you can know how you should have done the problems if you did not do them correctly, uh, or how to better show your work on these problems. So, without further ado, here we go. On the homework 3-2, we had 4, 6, 9, 10, 14, and 15. And so I'll start with number 4 here. So on number 4, we are asked to write a percent proportion for the bar diagram shown. The percent proportion is the same every single time. The right side is the percent over 100. And if we look at that, it is 68% out of 100%. So it's 68 out of 100. On the left side, the number that goes with the 68 needs to be in the numerator where the 68 is. So if we look at that, this 68% is 17. And so I'm going to put a 17 in the same position as the 68 because the 68 represents the 17. The unknown part is the part that goes with the 100. This is the whole amount. I am not going to use two little question marks. I'm going to use an X to represent the unknown. And this problem doesn't ask me to solve it, but I'm curious. I'm going to go through and solve this. So here we go. I'm going to cross multiply. I'm going to multiply the one that has the variable in it first, and then the other one is 17 times 100. And then I'm always going to divide by the coefficient or the number in front of the variable. So 68 cancels out there. And so now this becomes just a calculator exercise or multiplication if you really want to. 17 times 100 divided by 68, and I get 25. So the unknown on that problem is 25, and what that means is 17 out of 25 is the same as 68 out of 100, or 68%. If you thought about this as like a test, if you got 17 out of 25, then you got a 68%, which would be a D+. Hopefully you wouldn't be pleased with that. So let's move on to number 6. Number 6, Gia, I don't know, researches online that her car is worth $3,000. That's the total value of her car. She hopes to sell it for 85% of that value, but she wants to get at least 70%. So she'd like to be able to sell it for 85% of that, but she wants to get at least 70%. She ends up selling it for $1,800. Did she get what she wanted? And it says to justify your answer. That just means to back up your answer with mathematical evidence. So there's several ways that I could attack this problem. One, I could find out what 80% of that is and find out what 70% of that is and see if this is somewhere in there or how it compares to that. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go another route because I think it'll be less work. I'm going to see what percent of the 3,000 this is, and then just compare it to these numbers I already know. I don't want to have to do a calculation here and a calculation here. I don't want to find 85% of 3,000 and then find 70% of 3,000 and then compare it to the 1,800. I'm just going to find out what percent 1,800 is of 3,000, so I can just use the percents to compare. So here we go. I'm going to throw it into the percent proportion. So we have the percent over 100. Well, I don't know what percent 1,800 is, so I'm going to put a P for percent. But I do know I want the percent for that 1,800, so that 1,800 needs to go in the same position as that percent. So the $1,800 is some percent of the 3,000, which is the total worth of the car. So I'm going to put the 3,000 here. So what percent out of 100 would 1,800 be compared to 3,000? Now that I have my proportion, I'm going to cross multiply. And so I'm going to take 3,000 times P, and that should equal 1,800 times 100. And then I'm going to divide by the number in front of my variable, which in this case happens to be 3,000. The coefficient of p is 3,000. So now I'm going to do the arithmetic that's on the right side of my proportion here. 1,800 times 100 equals 3,000. 1,800 times 100 divided by 3,000. And I get 60. But this is a percent, so that is 60%. So let's take a look at this problem here. It asked me, did she get what she wanted? Well, she got 60% of what the car was worth. She was wanting 85, but at a bare minimum 70, she didn't get that. She only got 60%. So Gia only she only got 60% of the car's value. So no, she did not get what she wanted. She only got 60%. Now, if we calculated 85% of 3,000 and 70% of 3,000, we would have gotten numbers that are higher than the 1,800 that she ended up selling it for, because she sold it for something less than what she wanted. So that is questions 4 and 6. So let's move on to the next page. The next page, we had questions 9 and 10. So I will add a new layer and get rid of that. So let's do question 9. Question 9, we are given a circle graph or a pie graph, which is the way to show percentages. However, this graph is not labeled with percentages. I think any quality pie graph or circle graph will have the percentages on it, so whoever made this is a pinch lacking in my opinion, but that's okay. We're going to calculate it. So here we go. A survey was given to people who owned a certain type of car. What percent of the people, what percent of the people surveyed, that's everybody surveyed, were completely satisfied with the car? So this is a car satisfaction survey. They want to know what percentage of the people surveyed were completely satisfied with the car. Well, if we look at this bluish piece is the completely satisfied, and it's 1,100 people said that. The issue is, I don't know what percent that is. Just from the picture, I can tell, since this is more than half of the circle, that I should get something that's more than 50%. So hopefully our answer will bear that out. But we're going to figure out what percent is this of all of it. It says of the people surveyed. That's everybody in the pie graph. So I know how many people are completely satisfied. What I don't know is I don't know how many people they surveyed. But I can figure that because I'm told how many people are in each of these slices. So I'm going to do a little arithmetic here. 1,100 people are completely satisfied. Completely satisfied. And then we have 740 people are, let's see, somewhat satisfied. So I'm going to say somewhat. And then we have 160 people are not satisfied. So 160 people are not satisfied. If I add up those categories, I should get the total number of people that were surveyed. So I have 0, 0 plus 0 plus 0. Here we have 10. I'll carry the 1, and 1, 8, 9, 10. And wonderfully enough, I get 2,000. So this is the 2,000 total people surveyed. So I have 2,000 people surveyed, and 1,100 of them are completely satisfied. And it wants to know what percent of the people surveyed were completely satisfied. So now I'm ready to do my percent proportion. I have the numbers to put in here. It asked me what percent. So I don't know the percent, so I'm going to put a P for percent over 100. And then I put the percent on the top, so that percent represents the completely satisfied one, which is this 1,100. So 1,100 people out of 2,000 is some percent out of 100. Once you have your proportion, it's cross multiply. 2,000p equals 1,100 times 100, and I'll divide by the 2,000 because that is the coefficient or the number in front of the variable. And a little calculator arithmetic, 1100 times 100 divided by 2,000. And I get a nice 55. This is a percent, so I have to have a percent label on it, but I'm going to give a little bit more than that. 55% are completely satisfied. Nope. Completely satisfied. And that does kind of match with what we see. This looks like it's a little bit more than half of the circle, so it makes sense that it's a little bit more than 50%. So now let's do question 10. So question 10, we have the Washingtons, a family, buy a studio apartment for $240,000. They pay a down payment, that's money that you pay, and so then you have to finance or get a loan for the rest of it, but they pay that much down right at the beginning. And it says their down payment is what percent of the purchase price. So for part A, we are wanting to know what percent of this whole purchase price is this $60,000 down payment. So we have the numbers we need. We have a down payment, we have the total purchase price here, and then we'll be finding the percent. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with my percent proportion. I always start with the percent, and that's what they're asking for. So I put the P over 100. And now it's asking what percent of the purchase price. So this purchase price is the whole amount that's going to go down here. So this is going to be $240,000. And the down payment was $60,000, so that goes in the numerator. So we have $60,000 down payment on a $240,000 purchase is some percent out of 100. So as before, I'm going to cross multiply, I'm going to divide, so 240,000 times P, that's that cross product, equals the other cross product. So equals 60,000 times 100. And then I'm going to divide by the number in front of the variable. So I'm going to divide by the coefficient of P, which happens to be 240,000, and that's to get rid of that. So we have P equals, and now I'm going to type it in, 60,000 times 100 divided by 240,000. And I get a nice 25. Which kind of makes sense if we look at the numbers, and that is a percent. So there's a 25% down payment. I think the standard recommended is at least at 20%, so they actually went a little beyond that. So the percent of down payment is 25%, and if you look at it, 60 is a fourth of 240, so that kind of makes sense that it's a 25% down payment. So on part B, it says what percent of the purchase price would a $12,000 down payment be? It's exactly the same problem, only the down payment is significantly less. It's not $60,000, it's only a $12,000 down payment. So I'm expecting a percent significantly lower, but the process to find it is exactly the same. I'm putting the down payment of $12,000 compared to the total purchase price of $240,000 is some percent over 100. So I'm going to cross multiply. Shockingly, or not so, it's exactly the same as the previous on that one. It's the other cross product that's different. It's only 12,000 times 100. And so when I divide by 240, wow, I'm going to step back there, 240,000 to get rid of the coefficient of my variable there. Now I have just different arithmetic here, but it's 12,000 times 100 divided by 240,000. And I get 5. So P equals 5, and this is a percent, so it's a 5% down payment. As I said, pretty standard down payment is a 20% down payment. So this $12,000 down payment may seem significant, but it's only 5%. So they're going to have to get a loan for the remaining 95%. And some places won't even loan you that high of a percentage of it. So that's why you should save up before you make that down payment. So we have 2 more problems to work through. They are on the next page of the homework. So we'll do these 2, and then you'll have all of your homework worked out. But you should have already had it homework worked out. Ask questions, and then ask more questions until you have everything worked out appropriately. So let's take a look at questions 14 and 15. Number 14, Hypatia has read 13 chapters of a 22-chapter book. What percent of the chapters has she read? So this is another percent that we are finding. So it should go just like the previous. Some percent, I don't know, out of 100 is, and she read 13 out of 22. So she read 13 out of 22. It's impossible to read more than 100% of a book, so it would not make sense to put the 22 on top. I don't know how nice this is going to be. 22, I don't think this is going to divide nicely, but it'll be okay. We can round it appropriately. So let's see, 22 times P is equal to 13 times 100. And then divide by the 22. And so the percent is 13 times 100 divided by 22. And I get, well, it's a repeating one, I get 59, and it's 0.09. And the 0.9 is interestingly repeating. So I'm going to put a little bar there. I could round that to approximately 59%, or roughly 60% of the way through the book. So that's number 14. So let's move on to number 15. A school has 4 quarters. What percent of a school year is 7 quarters? So we have to be careful here. We have to put it into our percent proportion like normal, but we need to think logically about it. It asks what percent, okay, don't know, so I'll call it P, but 4 quarters is 100% of the school year. So this is all of the school year, and so this is the quarters for all of the school year, so the 4 has to go here. So the percent is representing what percent of a school year is 7 quarters. That's more than all. That's more than a year of school, 7 quarters. So it should not be surprising that this percent is going to be over 100% because 7 quarters is more than 4 quarters. It's more than all of it. And so now that I have my 7 quarters over 4 quarters is some percent for those 7 quarters out of 100% for the whole year. So I have my proportion set up. I'm going to cross multiply. 4P is equal to 7 times 100. I'll divide by the 4 that is in front of the variable. And so when you do that arithmetic, 7 times 100 divided by 4, and I get 175. So 7 quarters represents 175% of a full school year of 4 quarters. And that should kind of make sense. That's 3 extra quarters, and 3 out of 4 is where that extra 75% is coming in. It's important that you don't just throw the numbers into the proportion, but you need to put them so that they match up. This is the quarters for all of a year, and this is the percent for all of the year. They have to go in the same position, so then that locked the 7 in to go into the numerator, and it asked me what percent is that 7/4, so it kind of makes sense that the percent and the 7 need to go in the same position. So hopefully that explains to you how you should have worked out each of the problems on homework 3-2. Whether you're finding a percent, or you're finding the part, or you're finding the whole, every single time you're going to cross multiply and divide, and then it's just some button pushing on a calculator and you can have the answer very quickly. So if you have any other questions, just comment into the Google Classroom posting, or go crazy and ask me in class, where I'm there just about every day. So that's it.